The third solo experience that I went on, actually went there twice, but the first time was probably the most beneficial. I went to a place called Frasier up north, actually an hour, about 45 minutes from the first cabin I actually stayed at. And it was a campsite, an Airbnb campsite, and it was just nothing but just land. And I had like an hour. I call it glamping. I had an outdoor kitchen or whatnot, like a makeshift like kitchen with some portable water and a sink, and then just a little further away was a little place for me to use the washroom, right out in the open, toilet seat and all, and nothing but sawdust. There's no flushing a toilet or anything like that. But with that experience and having the hour-long trail all to myself, I remember when I first got there, I didn't know what to do with myself, but I wanted to challenge myself. And I remember looking at the map and being like, you know what? I just got here. I'm going to go for a walk. And I went through that trail multiple times. And I remember the following day, I said to myself, I'm going to leave my knife. I'm going to leave my cell phone. I'm going to leave this. I'm going to leave that. I'm just going to go by myself. And I went through that trail by myself with nothing, no safety net or anything. No whistle, nothing, just me and myself. And I remember walking through and just feeling just this feeling of being, first of all, surrounded by nature, surrounded by trees. In a weird way, I felt safer than I would feel walking downtown at night, if that makes sense. And I was presented with another real world anxiety moment, right? There was this huge bird, I don't know what it was, that was in front of me. And I remember the jolt of fear and anxiety that went through my body. In that moment, I realized that, wow, like that is anxiety. It was the fight or flight experience that I've experienced the last time I went on my solo experience in the cabin. And I remember standing there and looking at this animal, and I slowly backed up just 2 or 3 steps and allowed it to kind of move and to demonstrate to it that I'm not trying to harm it. And what it did, it looked at me. I think we both startled each other. And by me kind of taking a step back, it knowing that I wasn't trying to encroach on its space, it went ahead and did its thing. But I remember feeling that anxiety. I'm in the middle, I'm at the tip of this trail, like right in the heart of it. It'll be too much for me to run back to the cabin. I don't want this thing chasing me through the woods, first of all. And second of all, I'm already here. And what that taught me was patience with dealing with anxiety. I needed to take a step back and allow this thing that's outside of me to do its thing. Now, would I have stood there all night or all day? No. But I needed to, in that moment, I realized that by me stepping back and allowing it to do whatever it's needed to do, I gave it the space to kind of continue doing what it set out to do. So search for more food or whatnot. And I remember after it crossed the path and went back into the forest or the woods or whatnot, I remember the feeling of relief that I felt after seeing it kind of go away. And that's the thing that I also realized with anxiety. For the mind anxiety, the thoughts and all that other stuff versus the real life anxiety. When there's something external presented in front of you. What I realized was patience. Right? What I realized was that jolt, that fear that I felt was a genuine response to something that was outside of my control. That had the potential to harm me. Right? And through feeling that, I remember, I'll never forget the feeling. A lot of the times, the anxiety that I was feeling even prior to showing up, because that's the thing, right? When I told people that I was going camping, 95% of the responses I got were one of the same. Aren't you afraid of murderers? Aren't you afraid of bear attacks? Are you afraid of getting killed? Or are you afraid that someone's gonna... All of these things that I had thought prior to, but decided anyways to continue to go and make my purchase, to book my reservation. And I remember just thinking to myself, like, if I entertained any of these thoughts at any point of my experience, I would have never gone on the trip. Oh my God, what if there is a murderer out there? What if there is an animal that's... And ultimately what ended up happening was I would have never came to those experiences of dealing with that anxiety that allowed me to make more sense of how my mind and my brain and my body works. Because what I realized is a lot of people are allowing their thoughts and anxiety within their minds to dictate their lives and stop them from accomplishing and doing things that they want to set out to do. Unless there is a threat that's presented in front of me, I need to understand that that's the only time I should be running. I can't run from my mind, nor can I run from my thoughts. The only thing I could do is just look at them and allow them to kind of pass by. And through that camping experience, that's what I learned. I learned that through being surrounded by nature and being surrounded by trees and all of this stuff, the sound that what I was looking, it was loud. I would say there's a lot going on. But that level of stimulation brought me peace, because I ultimately realized that with or without me, there's a world that's going to be moving. If at any point of the trip through that trail, I would stop and look at and lift a branch up or just look at the dirt, there'd be bugs and creatures and critters running around doing their thing. And that ultimately showed me that with or without me in this world, the world will continue to move. It's how my thoughts paint that world, which will dictate how I would feel about and how I interact with it. That trip was transformative. It allowed me to connect with myself, and more importantly, it allowed me to connect with God. It allowed me to connect to this, I don't want to say source, but it allowed me to connect to this thing that allowed me to observe it doing its thing, regardless if I was there or not. Because before I showed up, these trees were here, these bugs and creatures were doing their thing. And after I leave this place, these bugs and creatures will continue to be doing their thing. So it gave me a different perspective to go back into the city and allow me to move and live my life in a way that made more sense to me. And ultimately giving me, yet again, another positive reference point.